Hey, what's up, you guys? I just want to talk to you real quick about a few things. I heard Terrence McKenna speaking of John Dee, and it piqued my interest for a few reasons. Right out the bat, right off the bat, John Dee reminds me of John D. Rockefeller, and the story Terrence gave a few interesting points that kind of had some things to do with my life. In the 1580s, in the field of alchemy, alchemy includes not only the transmutation of base metals to precious ones, but also solvents and quintessence and much, much more. The first alchemy may actually have been juices or infusions of plants. John Dee composed the spirit of the modern scientists according to the lecture by McKenna. He made many tools for the suggestion of a round earth, specifically in navigation. He studied under cartographers and adapted many of his ideas to the likings of the globe Earth. He would also study under different people for gravity and such like that. According to the story, the angel Gabriel descends upon him in his garden and gives him the shoe stone. This is supposed to be in the British Museum. It is made from obsidian and from the Aztecs, originally associated with the deity named Smoky Mirror. Apparently, it was a television screen into the logos, to use the words of Terrence. He would go on to use this for several years, directing foreign policy in England and also being the prime astrologer of the day. He was the lead for horoscopes for the elite in Europe, including Queen Elizabeth, while being a spy for her and constantly supplying her with military intelligence. He couldn't much use the shoe stone given to him by an angel. John Dee met Edward Kelly, an earless man. Edward Kelly was said to understand or interpret messages from the shoe stone. John Dee was married to Anne Dee, and Edward Kelly had sex with her, stating the angel said to do this with his wife. John Dee allowed her and Edward to have sex. In 1582, Anne, John, and Edward set out for Bohemia, and the leader, Rudolph, held sway at this time. Rudolph was an eclectic collector, and he loved strange things. John and Edward claimed to perfect the alchemical process, and this was enough for Rudolph to give them a castle, Rudolph to give them a castle. However, they were never able to produce sufficient alchemy. Edward Kelly told John Dee he held a transcript said to hold much knowledge in an unknown language. This was possibly the Vonage manuscript. This wound up in the hands of Rudolph, eventually. Rudolph paid money to unknown persons, possibly Dee, around the exact time the exchange took place, and John Dee had that exact amount in his payment log as well. Dee talked himself out of this promise of alchemy by way of producing the hieroglyphic monad and such, and depicting a certain diagram like the sign of Mercury or a female with horns as the hieroglyphic monad. He initiated Michael Meyer and Johann Andre and left Bohemia. Kelly made more claims than was kept by Rudolph. One night, Kelly slipped when trying to escape off the roof and fell to his own death. So that's interesting. Kelly died. In 1920s, geometry was of Euclid's work and Dee's preface to Euclid. So Dee has always been associated with mathematics. Henry VIII kicked the Catholic Church out of England, and Dee was allowed to pick up what he wanted from these looted monasteries. For example, Roger Bacon manuscripts were solely found in Dee's library and were later burned by others. Dee is said to be the image of the white-beard wizard, with the pointed cap often seen in film and mythology. James I became king. Elizabeth was king, and James was queen, the people said as a joke. James hated occultism, unlike Elizabeth, apparently. In 1606, the document, the Fama, and 2 years later, the Confessio, were seeking others for recruitment based on Rosicrucianism. Frederick, the elector of the Northern German League in Heidelberg, was their target of interest, and they got him to marry Elizabeth, the daughter of James I of England, for his wife. Frederick thought if James gave his daughter to him, this would be a way of blessing the alchemical conspiracy, but really James was thinking of just balancing power by marrying into different families. He also married into the Catholic families of the Habsburg or Heidelberg. In 1618, Rudolph the Emperor dies. Protestant Northern League elected the Emperor Okay, so the Protestant Northern League is the one who elected the emperor. Frederick became emperor of the empire, elector of Bohemia. He laid a alchemical revolution groundwork in Central Europe, was to disrupt and take efforts of the Protestant Reformation progress by intertwining with a subsection of it. Strangely, D's name meant black. Along with many skills, John was an experienced mathematician. John Dee also claimed to be a descent from Roger the Great, the Prince of Wales. Okay, now we're going to talk about mirrors. The definition of a mirror, a polished surface used to reflect the images of objects or something to wonder at. A mirror is something to look at with the eyes. It can mean many things. When its meaning is traced back, mirror can relate to a watchtower or a gallery commanding an extensive view. A gallery is a covered walkway, passageway, or a narrow pathway along a wall. This could be something watching us from a cubbyhole existence like the Truman Show, or something like that. Gallery could also mean the highest, cheapest seats, which is still congruent. Now, in Mesoamerican cultures, they maintain that mirrors are associated with portals and realms to the unseen and things that can't be directly interacted with. During the Spanish conquest, they noticed Maya, Aztec, and other tribes using water and bowls as mirrors of divination. In their native artwork, mirrors are directly thought to be tools such as liquid in bowls. In 1900 to 1521, obsidian began to be used more often than before. This period will also see an increase in chaos and warfare. In certain tribes, this time period was seen as cultural decline, with an interesting boost in technology, architecture, engineering, and weapons. Growth boomed, and experimental governance began to come into the world, specifically dual leadership, and military expanded while wealthy merchants grew rich. This is much like the times right now. Mirrors in Mesoamerica were simply divinatory aids and served as a status symbol. In my time, this equates to the cell phone. These will connect you to the internet and any other communication pathway available to it, so not much has changed. And it is a status symbol. You have to have the latest and greatest thing, you know what I mean? Mirrors to the native cultures of America were seen as sacred caves and conduits for supernatural forces. They were associated with fiery hearths and pools of water because their bright surfaces. Mirrors were also associated with the sun. The Mayan were known to communicate through mirrors to entities in other worlds. Other world mirrors were believed to be the far side of earthly mirrors, and were owned and used by deities and other supernatural beings. In the post-class period, the world was seen as a huge circular mirror to some of these tribes, which would go hand in hand with holographic Earth. Holographic universe. Representations of mirrors in art from the classic period and coastal regions depict the mirror face using a glyph in the form of a reptilian eye. Specifically, the eye of a reptilian hieroglyph is most often obsidian. Again, this is a obsidian mirror in the eye of the hieroglyph. This directly links reptilian creatures, visual aspects of the mirror, and obsidian as a material. In these cultures, mirrors also began to be associated with spiderwebs. Again, a link between cell phones and the internet, aka the web, is shown. Again, expanding on the language of mirror, in German, mirror can be related to shade or shadow. So like a shadow realm, a mirror realm. Mirror image is something identical to another, but having the right and left reversed. Mirror is not only a noun, like I've spoken of, but it's also an action or a verb meaning to reflect. Another great example of wordsmithery is mirage. A mirage is an optical illusion of objects reflected in a sheet of water in hot, sandy deserts. According to this notion, a mirage or illusion of objects is able to manifest within barren areas if given a sheet of reflection. Are the natives right about the mirror and mixing data with modern science of holograms? And that would make some sort of sense. A mirage is like a hologram. Or a mirage is like a hologram. With a hologram, the source of image is controlled and known, but with a mirage, the source of the image is what? Where does the source come from with the mirage? Is it in the imagination or spontaneously spawned through its own origin? Lots of questions to other issues are made by attempting to research this particular answer. Now, this may seem strange, but matter is known to be a reflector itself. For that matter, electrons may be reflectors or tiny mirrors themselves, with light within them and outside of them causing interactions along the way. I found another who felt the same idea in the Smoky Mirror from the Four Agreements book. The Smoky Mirror. 3,000 years ago, there was a human just like you and me who lived near a city surrounded by mountains. The human was studying to become a medicine man to learn the knowledge of his ancestors, but he didn't completely agree with everything he was learning. In his heart, he felt there must be something more. One day as he slept in a cave, he dreamt that he saw his own body sleeping. He came out of the cave. On the night of the new moon, the sky was clear and he could see millions of stars. Then something happened inside of him that transformed his life forever, and he looked at his hands, he felt his body, he heard his own voice say, "I am made of light. I am made of stars." He looked at the stars again, and then he realized that it's not the stars that create light, but rather the light that creates the stars. "Everything is made of light," he said, "and the space in between isn't empty." And he knew that everything that exists is one living being, and that light is the messenger of life, because it is alive and contains all information. Then he realized that although he was made of stars, he was not those stars. "I am in between the stars," he thought. So he called the stars the tonal, and the light between the stars the Nagual. And he knew that what created the harmony and peace between the two is life and intent. Without life, the tonal and the other word could not exist. Life is the force of the absolute, the supreme, the creator who creates everything. This is what he discovered. Everything in existence is a manifestation of the one living being we call God. Everything is God. And he came to the conclusion that human perception is merely light perceiving light. He also saw that matter is a mirror. Everything is a mirror that reflects light and creates images of that light and the world of illusion. The dream is just like the smoke, which doesn't allow us to see what we really are. The real us is pure love, pure light, he said. He had discovered that he was a mirror for the rest of the people, a mirror in which he could see himself. Everyone is a mirror, he said. He saw himself in everyone, but nobody saw him as themselves. And he realized that everyone was dreaming, but without awareness, without knowing what they really are. They couldn't see him as themselves because there was a wall of fog or smoke between the mirrors. And that wall of fog was made by the interpretation of images of light, the dream of humans. Then he knew that he would soon forget all that he had learned. He wanted to remember all the visions he had had, so he decided to call himself the Smoky Mirror, so that he would always know that matter's a mirror, and the smoke in between is what keeps us knowing what we are. He said, "I am Smoky Mirror because I am looking at myself and all of you, but we don't recognize each other because of the smoke in between us. That smoke is the dream, and the mirror is you, the dreamer." This is really interesting. Earlier we heard of a being that used the name Smoky Mirror possibly for bad, and now somebody using it for good. One who helps clear the smoke and one who adds confusion. The same result with a different meaning behind them. In my talks previously I mentioned a realization that the world is a sort of self-reflection, giving life to God, so this hit home for me. It is the information I know to be the truth. Light is information that tells life how to proceed and progress. Science and history shows that light is information, and that matter is a reflection. If matter had no light, it would have no vibrancy. If matter had no light, it would lose its life. Life is in between the mirrors of matter and lights of information, alongside the ever-confusing smoke that binds us from our own perceptions. One could see themselves as a mirror. This is something that receives input and transmits the input into output. If there is smoke in either direction of the input or output, there's a misinterpretation of the light, and it doesn't come in or go out as it really is. It's altered. All of my information presented would correlate perfectly to the stories of old, and stories manifest by the human imagination in supposedly fiction works. Meaning the high priests of old that used to control the city by deceit magic, and mischief that used to take all the women, kill the men, and loot anything they could that could be taken from are the same men today doing the same things. These evil people are still at large by the same means. They contact otherworld dimensions by means of these magical mirrors, and they contact the possessor of the same of the tool the same, the demonic entities. Okay, like I said, this they may try to gain power by bloody sacrifices to a mean god. Now I'm going to share a Salvia experience with you. Once while smoking Salvia through a water pipe, I realized something shocking. My television was actually watching me. I have no way of knowing how to accurately describe this situation, but I was on my recliner with my wife watching me and my dog in the room. The effects were immediate, and I saw, or more accurately became aware, that something was looking at me atop my television monitor, or television stand, and was peering at me through the monitor somehow. The other apparent thing was these square geometrical anomalies that seemed to be related to the TV. This TV was not modern for its time, and was not flat but quite bulky, and it still produced this unwanted effect of some window watcher from another place peeking at me. It felt wrong to have them watching me, and ever since this I connected some strange dots. Phones, for example, and many TV screens seem to have some sort of shiny material like a mirror, and this, I believe, relates back to obsidian of some sort. Obsidian is from volcanic means, and basically it leaks through from hell, you could say. I will now mention the importance of Gabriel bringing Dee the shoe stone. Gabriel was also charged with shining the light on the whereabouts of the plates to begin the origins of the Mormon religion. Joseph Smith was reported to have found plates containing history via the direction of Gabriel. Is an angel only capable of just that? Shining a light only? Is that how Dee really got the stone? Or was he physically presented it? I'm not sure, but either way is interesting. As for the origins of Mormonism, Smith was shown. This would keep angels consistent with some type of spirit existence, and perhaps not a physical one. And finally, the big questions. Did it even really happen? And if so, was it really Gabriel, or was it an imposter that showed him the stone? To summarize, we have talked about mere men being trapped to their experience, and angels being trapped to theirs, with man and whatever else physical in the middle, or middles, that are manipulated. Perhaps below us there is another biological system, perhaps above us another as well. And a little bit more on Smoky Mirror real quick. Smoky Mirror could turn into a jaguar, and was said to possibly have lost a foot to an earth monster. Smoky Mirror may be related to a more ancient deity found by the Olmec and Maya named Tohil, or literally Obsidian. And this deity was associated with sacrifice. He may also bear resemblance to Kawil, a snouted, spiral-eyed Mayan monster with an obsidian object in its head and a snake leg. The Olmec and Maya referred to him, this character, as a jaguar. Smoky Mirror was also black, and people pretending to be him would paint themselves black in his honor. Tezcatlipoca was the enemy of Quetzalcoatl, like I said, and Tezcatlipoca may be directly associated with the spirit of darkness. This character is celebrated in May for the Toxcatl. The preparations begin a year earlier, when a young man is selected by the priest to be the likeness of this character. They treat the individual as a god, and then 20 days before they sacrifice him, he becomes a warrior again, and then they kill him. So this might actually be related to what they do today, and some of their, building somebody up and then tearing them down type of thing. All interesting information having to do with mirrors and history. What do you guys think?